travel. If you don't listen, maybe now it's time. This is where the mind meets the magic. We dive a little deeper every time.
Hello, and welcome to Mousecast, the podcast where the mind meets the magic. Hey, we are back. It is another boys' night. Megan, unfortunately, couldn't be with us, so it is Hawk, myself, and Matt tonight. Guys, I hope you guys had a fantastic Labor Day, and welcome to those who are joining us in the chat. I know, Hawk, you had a great Labor Day, although I understand it was a little bit of a spooky Labor Day.
I did have a great Labor Day. It was a combination, actually. We spent Friday at Halloween Horror Nights, and then we took a day off, and then Sunday we went back to Halloween Horror Nights, and then Monday we actually went over and spent some time at Animal Kingdom, which was amazing. So we had a theme park filled weekend and spent way too much on souvenirs, but it was worth it. And we enjoyed ourselves very.
As Hawk is sporting his Halloween Horror Night shirt and, of course, mug. We know about Hawk and his mugs. Hey, check out the Mousecast Facebook page, Mousecast 2025 on Facebook. Hawk put up a great post earlier today about some of his adventures and thoughts about Halloween Horror Nights. Matt, how was your Labor Day?
I was laboring, Chuck.
There we go. He was
busy weekend.
He was a busy weekend, so it was a fun Labor Day.
Chris, good evening.
Yes, Chris is with us. Welcome. Glad to have you here. So we thought we would start off, and speaking of Labor Day, it was a busy Labor Day weekend in the Disney community. Over the Labor Day weekend, Disney held Destination D23 over at Coronado Springs Resorts, and there were a few announcements that were made that we thought we would just kind of quickly review here before we get to our main topic, which is some reaction and response to a post that Disney put on the Disney Parks blog about the best time to visit. And we kind of saw that and went, maybe so. Let's kind of see how that goes. First and foremost, a couple of announcements that came out of Destination D. The World of Frozen is opening over at Disneyland Paris in spring 2026, which is also part of the overall change of the Walt Disney Studios park. There are two parks over in Paris. There's Disneyland Paris, and then there's also Walt Disney Studios. Walt Disney Studios is changing to Disney Adventure World, and so it's just nice to see that Disney is starting to put some attention and continuing to put attention into this second park over at Disneyland Paris. You know, what originally began as Euro Disney, and it's really kind of made a change. I had a chance to go to Disneyland Paris way back in 2016, and it's really changed even since then in the last 9 years. So it looks like it's going to be a very interesting, new and I think very welcome expansion and development for the Paris, one of the two Paris parks. Hey, some news about Dinosaur. We all know that it's closing. Well, we have a date now, February 1st of 2026. So if you are looking, yeah, as I say, if you are looking to get one last run on Dinosaur, you need to do so before February 1st, and then it will be shutting down and, of course, making its way for the impending Indiana Jones new change. Caleb, welcome. Glad to have you with us tonight. There's also another announcement from Destination Disney, the Tron Ares overlay. So Tron Light Cycle Run is going to have a new overlay. Essentially, they're going to change the light scheme. Originally, it is a kind of that cyan, neonish blue and orange to a red and orange overlay, which again ties into the Tron Ares movie that is coming out in October. And guys, what I like about this is that we're seeing Disney ready to tie into something new that's coming to the theaters, and it's going to happen even before it hits the theaters. I love this idea, and I hope that Disney kind of really thinks of more ways as they have new movies that come out, if there's a way to tie them into the parks as they're there, not we're going to do a Frozen attraction a year and a half afterwards.
I agree 100%. Seeing Disney get a little more proactive instead of reactive with staying with what's coming up and keeping it modern, keeping it up to date, I think is a super important step. That is something that other parks have done better than Disney at.
Even other Disney parks. So again, we see Disneyland doing traditional overlays all the time. And we've discussed it at length in the past of why at Walt Disney World you do not see some of the same overlays that you do at Disneyland. And there's some understandable reasons and some that maybe are not as understandable. But
just seeing them being reactive with movies,
yeah,
or like banking on them a little bit in advertising and helping and putting the effort in before the fact of waiting to see whether or not it's successful, what it's going to bring out. Like, I think that does make a difference when you're showing some confidence in your own product. It begins to help the consumer believe in it a little more as well. So we'll see what kind of effect that has. It's going to be interesting to see for sure, but I am glad to see them being more proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that synergy that you're seeing.
Yeah.
Another big announcement, I think there were two major announcements, in my opinion, out of D23, out of Destination D23. The first is Cinderella Castle. No, folks, calm down. We're not getting the birthday cake like we got for the 25th anniversary. That's okay. Matt's breathing a sigh of relief right there. The Cinderella Castle paint scheme and color scheme is returning to its classic looks of the blues and the creams. It's going to go back to what it was, very close to its original paint scheme. It had gone to this kind of pinkish overlay for the 50th anniversary, and it's time to get back to Cinderella Castle, back to its former glory.
I think this is a great one. I think there's a lot of people that are very excited about it. The first comment I saw on every post announcing this was that now it's time to bring the Dreamlights back. Unfortunately, I don't think it will ever happen.
No, it won't.
But Disney, if you're listening, I would love to see a Dreamlight projection. You've got the technology to bring it as close as possible. Put those Dreamlights back on the castle, even if you do it with a projection mapping, sparkling little lights on there. You can bring it back to the fans. I think that's an important.
Well, and I'll go one step further. That with at the time the Dreamlights, if you ever saw, there was and Chris says it's going to be interesting to see the castle in its classic color scheme. Only time I saw it in original colors was back in 2012. Ever since it was for the newer colors for the 50th, and that's exactly right. I think I'm very much looking forward to seeing Cinderella Castle back to her former glory. If you go back and you watch, there were some documentaries that are done about the Dreamlights, and it was essentially net lighting. It was big, literally like fishing nets and all that. The technology has changed and advanced so much. I think there's a way that they could actually have them permanently installed onto the castle and only turn them on for the Dream. I think there's a way to do it, but who knows? You're probably right though. The projection mapping will probably be the best way to do it, but I would like to see practical effects as well as projection effects, frankly. Married to Disney Addict says, and that's Brian, Brian, I believe. So excited for Walt to be in Walt Disney World. Hold that thought. We're getting there in just a minute. Matt, what do you think about this whole return of Cinderella Castle back to her original glory?
I'm excited for it because I don't really remember like the classic look of the castle. I don't like recent memory. It's just being the pink color. That's like it's okay, but give me that clean, like nostalgic kind of white and blues and the gold that they're going to add to it. And I would like to see some kind of possible special effects, like you got it as I mentioned, like bring something that will still like draw your eye. I mean, it's kind of hard to miss, but like bring some kind of element back to the castle. I'm really excited to see the classic look.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's gonna really look hot. Hey, by the way, if you are watching us right now, share out the fact that you are watching Mousecast right now, and encourage others to join the conversation tonight. So the big one, I think the biggest announcement of the night was Walt Disney himself is coming to the Carousel of Progress. So a couple of months ago, we have talked about it. Yeah, on ice. No, we're not bringing that one. A couple of months ago, Disney announced and debuted the Walt Disney animatronic as part of over at the Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln over at that theater, and so now there's two shows going on. Hawk is expressing, for those in the if you're listening right now, audio podcast, you really need to join us visually just to see Hawk's facial expressions right now. I mean, it's, yeah. Anyway, so hey, BC Productions, welcome. The world and Hawk are celebrating because this signals Carousel of Progress is not going anywhere. Welcome. Glad to have you with us. Walt's coming. Now, the question that was put out by the Disney Parks blog, and we're all wondering, is exactly where. Based upon what we saw from the concept art, in fact, I think, Hawk, you can pull it up here. I've got it on screen here. Let me zoom in for everybody. There we go. If you want to pull it up real quick here. Based on the concept art here, this very much looks like they're going to take out. So if you think about the Carousel of Progress, you have that opening scene that just is the Carousel of Progress logo with a rotating LED, a cycling LED light, and it just keeps going, blue and red, and yellow and green and purple and all, whatever. So I think they're going to take that out. And this is going to be Walt doing the introduction of Carousel of Progress. And so, I think it's just going to be that opening scene. He's going to kind of be the introduction to the Carousel of Progress. But there is something interesting that they also announced. Now, I'll go down here, and it said right here, there are still plenty of additional details to be revealed, including what John, Sarah, and the rest of the family, by the way, that family name, the Peabody family, you only hear that during the original 1964 World's Fair version. But what that family are up to. What this says, though, is that it looks like, though, that there's going to be some changes to the actual Carousel of Progress itself. Oh, hey, it's Tom. BC Productions is Tom. Tom, welcome. Glad to have you with us. You came in under a different name tonight. Glad to have you with us. So, of course, we know that's Hawk's favorite attraction is Carousel of Progress. I personally, I think that we're probably going to mostly see, come on, Hawk. I think we're mostly going to see changes probably to that fourth scene. And that fourth scene has had multiple changes over the years. So we'll see exactly kind of what happens. But I think it's going to be an interesting bit to have Carousel of Progress change.
What this really means is once they put in this Walt animatronic and he has his little speaking part at some point in Carousel of Progress, for the next 6 months to a year after they open, I can't nap because it's going to be a bunch of people clapping and cheering that Walt's finally in Magic Kingdom. It's going to disrupt my nap time in Carousel of Progress. I'm going to be very disappointed. And then I have to hear some new baloney when I'm used to falling asleep to the old baloney that's been there for 25 years. Carousel of Progress desperately needed progress. It has been at a Carousel of Progress has been stalled, stopped, and pretty much outdated for a few decades.
Well, you remember this thing has been running since 1964. So
I understand. It definitely needed an upgrade, and this is something that hopefully they maintain some classic and bring in some new and potentially even progressing ahead as to what it looks like from now moving forward.
Yeah, and that's the thought. I mean, Matt, what do you think? Because I think the general thought is it's that fourth scene. Currently, it's the holidays. In a previous iteration, it was actually the New Year's, and then the latest iteration, it comes back to Christmas. Matt, what do you think? Where do you think they're going to go with that fourth scene?
It's tough because I feel like every time they make changes to these classic rides, a bunch of people get on the internet and start crying and, oh, this wasn't Walt's vision, this, that. I'm just like, if you know what Walt's vision was, it's progress. Literally, it's Carousel of Progress. So we need this ride to be updated. We need to progress forward from where we started. I agree with Hawk. It still needs to keep the classical elements to it, but we're kind of past
and Matt,
these new technologies in the last scene. While they're current technologies, that there's nothing new right now. It's okay, let's kind of all right, what does the future hold? Kind of bringing in a twist on what Walt wanted for Epcot, as far as okay, we're going to continue to progress new technologies and make people's lives easier. Okay, what is that fourth scene? What does that kind of encompass? Since we don't have Walt's Epcot, essentially what he thought about.
And Matt, I think you bring up a great point in the sense that, it was designed as the carousel of progress. And I think what is so frustrating, even though there's plenty of Disney purists, Tom, that really enjoy the carousel of progress.
Yeah, Brian says they're going to swap the John animatronic with Hawk, but he's going to be live, so it's going to be his new job. It's just sitting in the chair.
I'll take Disney paychecks, but the reality is, it really needed an update 30 years ago, and it really truly did. And one of the big knocks on Tomorrowland in that area is that it hadn't been very tomorrowed for a long time.
Yeah, that's part of the problem with that whole idea, because look, folks, the nature of progress that we have right now, they could do something really forward thinking, but 5 years from now, it's not forward thinking anymore. And it takes too long for these things to happen.
But they also have to make some effort at it, even if they fail, because I'd rather have 5 years outdated in 5 years than 50 years outdated like we currently have now with a lot of attractions. And, technology has come so far. It's great to see Tron over there. I still think it could have been a much better ride than what it wound up being. But it is breathtaking to look at. It's beautiful at night. They did a great job with the design. I was a little disappointed that it was cookie cutter to a ride that already existed in Shanghai. I just think you had the opportunity to make it a little different and make it your own. And I think that's where Disney struggles a little bit. But
yeah, Mark has made it here. Welcome, Mark.
Yeah, we got some people going off tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think, if you want to be able to portray Walt's vision, and one of the things I find interesting, if you recall, Walt never wanted an animatronic of himself.
That is very true.
So for all these people claiming the Disney purists, they're stepping away from Walt's wishes by putting him in the parks. I know fans like the idea, but Walt didn't.
And he didn't really even want a statue. Forget animatronic that's moving and talking. He really didn't even want a statue of himself. And so it was controversial when Partners came around back in the 90s.
It's interesting to see how pure you're really going, because this is a debatable thing, but we have spent enough time.
I was going to say, we have one last comment though that we have to share. And of course it's from Tom, and he does say, it pains me to say this, Hawk is right. Tom, you'll pay for that much later. I promise you're going to pay for that, buddy. It should have been updated 30 years ago. Even though I'm a purist on most things, the Carousel of Progress should be ever changing.
Chuck, I do want to say that this year's D23 was like a fart from Hey Hey running by you compared to last year.
Well, you're talking about the Destination D, not D23 back in the summer, but Destination D.
Correct. But the news breaking compared to what we saw over last year when they were competing with Epic.
Hi, Danny. Welcome.
Scaled down so drastically. It's literally almost comical.
Yeah, it was interesting, and there was one other bit that we're not going to really talk about because I don't think really there's that much to talk about. There was a tease of, we're going to share a little bit about Villains Land, and Villains Land ended up being just, we're talking about some of the architectural influences of Villains Land, and I'm like, okay, interesting, but that's nice, but we didn't really get to a whole lot. So the other topic, though, that we also wanted to talk about tonight at the Disney Parks blog, they put out a post back at the end of August, and they said, hey, when's the best time to go to Walt Disney World? And so
now.
They put... Yeah, now. Well, they put out... Well, it's funny, and we're going to go over that.
Now.
This is a very common question that myself, I'm a travel planner, and many of my colleagues get this question all the time. Hey, when's the best time to go to Walt Disney World? And usually it breaks down to one of two things. When's it going to be the cheapest? When are the crowds going to be low? And so I thought we would, the Disney Parks blog tried to answer that, and I thought we would kind of talk a little bit about that. So Hawk Pull Up, this is their first one that they talked about. So, they said, okay, first, when is it the best time to go? They say the lowest prices to go are during the summer, August and September, because they say, well, this is when our lowest prices are. Interesting thing, because I will tell you what, I went this afternoon and I did a little analysis. And so I looked at, I tried to do the same resort. So, because really the price that is the most fluctuating throughout the year is the room price. Your tickets aren't going to change from they will change some because but no matter what you do, the tickets are going to be a little bit, tickets are tickets. But the room rates fluctuate more greatly than anything else. So I looked at from September, like this month, all the way through October of next year. And I did Port Orleans, French Quarter, and Riverside. I had to flip between the two because sometimes one was sold out and the other. And anything from a standard to a garden view room. The prices ranged from the most expensive at mid-December at $456 per night. Now, this is non-discounted. And the reason I didn't do discounts is because we don't know discounts, super far out. So, the best way to do an apples-to-apples comparison is non-discounted room rates. The most expensive was mid-December, and I did this generally the second Friday of every month through the Sunday, so just like a long weekend kind of concept. So mid-December, 456. Mid-September is in like this month, 373 was third highest, with mid-November being high. Interestingly enough, next summer, June, July was actually the cheapest at $304. June, July were the cheapest, not as Disney says here, August to September. In fact, August of next year, 328, September 349. September this year, 373. It was among the highest. January also was very high as well. And so when you look at the room rate prices, actually it was cheapest. Lowest prices were May, June, July, and then August.
So Chuck, did you look at All-Star Resort prices?
I wanted to look at one class of resort. Typically, if you're going to see it, you're going to see the same kind of pricing sometimes.
Used to think the same. That doesn't always happen with Disney. So depending on, keep in mind, that can be convention seasons, other things going on around that. But All-Stars have a tendency to be very affordable the last 2 weeks of August and the first 2 weeks of September, because the local kids are back in school as of the 11th, 12th, 13th of August. They lose a lot of local business. You have a lot of Europeans coming over that are coming over for a good amount of time, and also for the most part, a lot of them tend to stay in upper level resorts. So they often will have hard times filling some of the lower level resorts during slow times, and you can get some really good steals because they also start offering locals rates discounted for Florida residents to come up and start filling some of those rooms. And you see those specials more and more often during that August, September time. So while people that are booking out August, September, I will tell you, is a great time for like those last minute short notice trips. You can get some really good deals on some stuff.
You do have to be flexible because depending on availability, things will sell out.
If you're not used to the heat, you could die. There's pools, Mark.
Oh, Mark, come on.
Mark, I'm a big guy. I survived July in August.
So,
But
being honest, my daughter and I used to come down for a 10-day trip, like the third or fourth week of August, prior to Labor Day. And a lot of people also think that Labor Day is a super, super busy weekend, and they're not wrong. But it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday tend to be very busy. The actual holiday, the parks are dead. They're so quiet. And there's hidden gems of those holidays. And I will tell you another great time to come in the fall, the day before a hurricane or the day after a hurricane.
Yeah, if you're flexible and you can just pick up and go,
they're some of the best days I've ever had in parks because they're super quiet. People wind up canceling trips. Plenty of availability. Crowds are down. But I don't necessarily agree with Disney on the cost analysis of August, September, because Chuck does make some points. But the crowd value of being there with not huge crowds.
Well, let's get to that because here's where they say lower crowds. So go ahead and pull this up. They say lower crowds are to take advantage of hours in the summer, back to school in early September, which Hawk we just talked about, and the weeks before and after the holidays. And this is probably that last one I'm going to challenge the most.
Really?
Because especially after the holidays, I was down right after, it was after New Year's. I was there, January 2, 3, 4, 5. And it may have been some of the busiest I have seen at Walt Disney World in a decade.
So
it was not marathon weekend either.
No, how did the dates fall though? Was it a Saturday involved? Was the weekend involved with the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th?
Yeah, it was that one thing where, it was I guess it was just this last year. So what, the first was on a Thursday or something like that or something like that.
So that explains why though.
Yeah, I mean, but it was crazy busy.
So,
Yeah.
but you've got to be smart with this too when you're dealing with holidays. Traditionally, the week after or the week before holidays are much lighter because, like I will tell you, living here, the 2 weeks prior to Thanksgiving and the 2 weeks after Thanksgiving are some of my favorite times to go during the holidays because the parks are very quiet, especially in the evening and afternoon. We enjoy going over. It's a great time to be able to go to the parks, but the week of Thanksgiving is obviously crazy.
Yeah, it's bananas. I've been down for Thanksgiving, and it was bananas.
I've been down that same time, and it's been dead up until like Thanksgiving Day, and even still, depends on what park you go to. Yeah, we did Animal Kingdom one year on Thanksgiving. It was quiet. We rode Cali River Rapids 7 times in a row. No lines.
Wow.
It was a really quiet day there. So,
and you know what's funny that you say that, Matt, because I will admit I've noticed over the last probably 3 to 5 years that holidays I think are getting oversold as being crazy and people aren't coming now because Jen and I went to Universal on Christmas the year I moved here. So it was 2022 and there was nobody there Christmas Day.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been seeing some of the same things. And in fact, if I remember correctly, last year, 2 years ago, Disney actually announced like Christmas week, specifically
Sales.
Christmas week discounts. It was 2 years ago for Christmas week. And I'm going, okay, that tells me that, they're not, there's rooms available and they're trying to get those rooms up. Listen, the reason that you see discounts is because Disney, is very good at projecting and they can see, oh, hey, we need to fill some rooms. And so we're going to find a way to, we need to give some incentive to fill some rooms here. So they're saying, the longer hours in the summer is one thing that is nice because some of the parks, especially like the Magic Kingdom, will stay open until, sometimes midnight. And if you get some of those deluxe after hours, if you're a deluxe resort guest and you get those late hours, sometimes you can, 1 in the morning, things like that. So you do have some pretty great low hours that are long nights that you can take advantage of. But, it was interesting that they highlighted specifically these times for lower crowds.
That's a weird one.
It is a little bit of a weird because I took a look at, there's some folks that do some different crowd calendars and you can just Google, different crowd calendars. Some of the interesting things that I saw were that like in, May, and I think we get back to the holiday concept.
First 2 weeks of May are great.
Well, it depends on when Easter is.
2 weeks after Easter.
Yeah, it depends on when Easter is.
2 weeks
So
after Easter, that's considered, like Disney employees will even tell you that's when they're told it's going to hit slow time.
Yeah.
Whatever Easter is on a given year, 2 weeks after that, it'll be fairly quiet.
Interestingly, March can be a lower time period if, and this happens to be this is from WW Prep School. I'm trying to make it zoom. Let me see. There we go. And this was from this particular year. So this year, Easter was later. And so here it is in April.
2 weeks
If
later.
Easter is later, then, you notice that March actually, some parts of March get a little bit better. If Easter's earlier, then, March gets bad. And again, you start to see the latter half, as you said, of April start to get pretty rough.
See very clearly New England's vacation week right there from the 14th of April. So that reds that up. And if you go up to February, You can also see when the New England schools traditionally wind up heading down.
Yep.
It's a combination of this week, like the second week and the third week, depending on the states you're in, because they do fluctuate a little bit.
Yeah, January also you got to watch a little bit around MLK weekend, of course marathon weekend as well. That's usually the second weekend of
'Cause the
January.
first week of February is amazing in the parks, and it's some of the best weather in my opinion.
Right.
It's not rainy season. It's 70 degrees in the day, gets down into the high 40s, low 50s at night. It's like super comfortable, really, really nice.
Now, this was another interesting bit that they brought up, and getting into when is the best time to go down if you want to experience holidays, of either the fall Halloween period like we're in right now, or into the Christmas time period. And Hawk, I agree with you that, and I have been down before, kind of that first week of December, and weather-wise wonderful, and crowd-wise was not bad at all, and you had just about all the holiday decor was up and running. We've talked about before the switchover that happens anywhere between the first and the second or thereabouts of November, when the mythical overnight transformation in the Magic Kingdom. It's not as much as maybe it once appeared to be. There's still a lot that takes place. Danny says we've experienced low crowds just after Thanksgiving and New Year's in the past. It's interesting, Danny, how after New Year's, I've seen some interesting things about New Year's, especially with the prevalence of Marathon Weekend, coming up, and especially those that want to do now the Disneyland World Marathon followed by the Disneyland right afterwards. It's kind of interesting.
Danny, I got to give some props to. He drives his family down from New York every time.
Oh, dude, that's a drive.
And he is an amazing. The Tobias family is one of the most amazing families I've ever met.
Great.
Huge fans of the Tobias family. And as a matter of fact, during that trip, I believe I met Danny and his family for dinner at Skipper Canteen one night after work. And
there you go.
Time. One of the things I want to touch on that Mark mentioned that I think is very interesting, not to cover Matt's face with this quote. Mark makes some big ones. It almost seems cyclical. People stay away because they hear crowds are crazy, and then the crowds are super light. So the next year, tons of people come, then they stay away the following year. And
that's a good point.
Works. And since, Horror Nights, I have to laugh about this particular post, not to get totally off topic, but last year, Horror Nights for the first time did what was called a premium scream night, where you could pay a large sum of money to go in for the night before the official opening, and you had food included, and there was all kinds of extras. And it turned into this amazingly reviewed night. Everybody got to get all 10 houses done, see the scare zones, see the shows. It was rave reviews. Universal got so excited, did it again this year, and oversold the event. And people were extremely frustrated, very upset. It was really tough. We did see Matt's one eye, like one eye over the top of the quote. But Matt Wazowski, that's what we're going to call you from now on.
Yeah, it's Matt Wazowski. Again, folks, if you're listening to the audio podcast, we're a lot of fun. Come join us and watch us live. So we're a lot of fun. Come and watch the live version.
So Horror Nights, I'm curious to how they do it next year, because do they pull it back a little for customer satisfaction purposes, because you are paying premium dollars for a premium experience, and many people felt as though that didn't happen this week.
And that's a danger that Disney has faced in the past too, with overselling. Right, Mickey's Not So Scary or Mickey's Very Merry. So there is that danger, because the whole premise of those two party nights, you get, and in fact, it's funny, going back to the Disney Parks blog, they talk about, somewhere here they talked about, taking advantage of, here we go, taking advantage of the different holiday events. But if they get oversold, then that kind of takes away from the whole purpose of having that, lighter, crowd time and able to ride attractions with minimal wait times and all that.
So one of the reasons we fell in love with Horror Nights, to be totally honest with you, is we can go on the ticket we purchase, we can go up to 40 times. So when you talk about being able to potentially get 40 days of going to Horror Nights out of your $300 pass that you buy, that's a great value dollar for dollar. And it gets hard for families to justify one night at some of these parties for a family of 4 or 6. When you get up to, close to $1,000 for people to go attend these holiday events, whether it's Mickey's Very Merry or the Halloween party or Jollywood Nights, it gets expensive. This is where some of the parks are competing on a smaller scale, like SeaWorld and Busch Gardens offering Howl of Scream. You can get those tickets for as low as $30 on sale sometimes. You don't see Disney going on sale.
No, I've never seen those tickets go on sale. So.
And they don't need to currently.
Right.
But with the economy and the changes coming and the downturn in theme park attendance, do you foresee prices actually dropping a little bit in coming years? Because I kind of do, to be honest.
It's possible. And I think you're going to see one of two things happen. You're either going to see the prices drop, but then that try to maintain the current attendance, or they maintain the ticket price and accept the fact that, hey, this is going to be a way essentially through attrition to try and get that crowd size back, maybe down to where we want it to really be an exclusive event. And, you have really minimum wait times and things like that. So there's kind of two schools of thought. Matt, what do you think? Which way do you think it might go? Or a third way?
Well, what crossed my mind is, maybe you keep the ticket prices the same, but you get deals somewhere else. Maybe, they like to run deals on, hotel rooms or something like that. So maybe that specific time, select deals that get people to stay on property and do something like that. Hey, you're paying, the one something to go to one of these parties, but at the same time, hey, we're going to.
You mean like the water park check-in day?
Well, yeah, that too. It's like, hey, we're going to throw this in for free, but it's actually part of your ticket or whatever like that. It's actually really included in what are they really giving up for that. Hey, you're going to go there anyway and spend money on, food and all this other stuff. So, hey, we'll get your money anyway. So that was when you mentioned, possibly lowering ticket prices. I figure like, they're probably going to keep it the same. They try to keep it more exclusive, but they might get a better, like, depending on when they run it. Like if you go maybe earlier in the year when schools are starting to go back, maybe there's a discount on rooms so they can draw in more people to come down versus, hey, when I go for Halloween, they know they can get, the business then. They keep,
yeah, I think
the same and stuff like that. So
Matt's hit the point because that's where they're built in for that sort of discounted structure is in the rooms. But I also want to open it up to folks, Mark, Danny, and Tom, and Chris, and everybody else. What do you guys think? We've kind of looked at what Disney Parks blog has been saying about the best time of year. What do you think? Do you think they're on to the right thing, or maybe a little bit off, or what do you guys all think? Go ahead.
And before we jump off the pricing point, I think Disney fans over the last couple of years, actually since COVID, essentially, have complained that Disney is really trying to cater to the high volume client, the high dollar client, right? They're trying to have less people that spend more money in order to kind of equalize the park, but not lose revenue. Because obviously they're still a business and they're still, trying to keep stakeholders happy and gain market share and everything else. But I think, in my opinion, they kind of hit their ceiling of where they could go with that, because there's been so much blowback to cost with theme parks over the last few years. You're starting to see the decline in people. You're starting to see lower visits, shorter visits, and it's affecting their bottom line. So I'm curious to what other people think as to how does Disney overcome that to continue to increase revenue? What kind of specials do you see coming? Now, here's what they know. 3 years from now, when these new worlds and new lands and everything else start being able to open and are able to run and wrapping up and people are able to come to the parks, their revenue is going to skyrocket again. It's going to go boom because people are going to hold off right now because
there's a lot of construction going on.
You know what I mean? So there's so many new things coming. A lot of people are putting those vacations on hold. How do they overcome that, and how do they keep the revenue coming in? Because the other side, honestly, even though Epic is having its share of problems and frustrations, it's still slammed every day, and they are expected to do huge revenue numbers this year with Epic Universe. And if you haven't gone, the immersion of that park is absolutely incredible, and Disney's got its work cut out for them to compete with that level of immersion to bring a similar experience. So we've talked about it, that the one thing Epic did amazingly well was live up to what they said was going to be presented. The concept art looked identical. Disney doesn't traditionally do that. You almost get like we tried, but it was a little harder than we thought. And it's like, it's been very rare occasion in the last 5 or 6 major projects that they've done where they exceeded or even met the concept art that was presented. If anything, they've under-delivered. So I think Disney knows they have to deliver. So as fans, are you holding out hope that this happens this time? Are you relying on the fact it's going to be the same old, and you just continue to come and do your thing? Like, I know Danny and his family love Walt Disney World and come whenever they possibly can. The purists aren't going to get affected. I don't think most of our fans would be affected. They'd still want to come. But I honestly think Disney's going to struggle with some attendance over the next
Well, I think the real issue, of course, are your first-timers, because when do those first-timers decide to be first-timers? And you're right, there's a lot of construction going on right now at Walt Disney World. There are a lot of attractions that are offline. In fact, again, as we just announced off the top of the show, that another one's going offline February 1st. Dinosaur's going offline. And we all knew this was coming because there's a lot of updating that Disney is doing right now, and that I think is very much to their benefit. This is a growing pains thing, short-term pain, long-term gain. I think right now you are seeing the idea that they want to try and, in fact, Chris just said, I'm sitting back and planning for the next visit in the next couple of years just to be at Disney, period. And I think that's where we're at right now. I think you do have folks that are kind of playing the waiting game, especially for the first timers, because they know that there's a lot of things coming on the horizon, but they're not necessarily here yet. And maybe they are deciding that, well, Epic's done. We'll go to Epic now and we'll save the other for, next year or 2 years from now. I still think that, Disney performance is very strong. Again, we look at the crowd performance, through the majority of the year, and the crowds are still pretty well there. Even on a light day, Hawk, like you said, you were over at Animal Kingdom on Labor Day, and Flight of Passage was 45 minutes, but that's still 45 minutes. So there were still a good number of people in the line.
So I want to share a photo real quick.
Yeah, here we go.
This is and this is what you're seeing in a lot of the parks right now, and a lot of people started to complain about it at Epcot when they were redoing the center. Is the walls everywhere? You were just walking through parks and there were walls everywhere up, construction walls. Right now, you have construction walls in Universal Studios. You have them in Islands. You have them in
every park has got construction walls
right now. But this is walking into Dinosaur. This is where the Triceratops spin used to be when you walked in. It was so surreal to walk towards Dinosaur and literally see nothing but blue sky, ironically, above a green wall. It was just insane to see how much it's already changed. At Universal, when we were there the other night, they've already changed so much of it that it's insane to me how fast these parks move now with getting things done. I mean, the construction, the work.
Well, they have to move fast. I don't think they can take their time anymore.
Well, but I mean, I understand it's competitive, but at the same time, I mean, the speed to which they're leveling stuff is crazy to me.
Yeah, Tom brings up a great point, and I think this may be a pretty pertinent point here. He says, I believe Disney took the opportunity to do so much construction now because it has accepted that Epic is going to outdraw it for the next year or two. And that's actually a pretty interesting comment, because if they accept the
outdraw Disney.
Huh?
It's not going to outdraw Disney, though.
Well, I think maybe there's an interesting school of thought here that they're realizing, okay, we know that Epic's, they're done. Okay, they're going to kind of just take their lumps, as it were, and just, if we're going to do it, let's just get it all done and try and do it all as much as we can. And
do you know what I think it is more than that, to be totally honest? I love that point, but I honestly think Disney did not know how far Epic was going to take it. I think they misplanned. I think they thought it would take Universal longer to get that park done than it did Tron. I think they underestimated Universal's commitment to getting that park done. And I'm going to be honest, because they built that entire park in the same amount of time it took Disney to build Tron. I want you to really think about that.
Yeah. Now let's put it in a little bit of context, because Tron was built over COVID, and so there were some slowdowns that occurred for Tron that didn't occur that weren't quite in the same bit for Epic in the same way. I mean, Tron was built over COVID.
Yeah, so was Epic.
Well, Epic was started in COVID, but Tron was in the middle of the thing, and then it got shut down.
Okay. Even if you want to state that, no one expected Universal to deliver that whole park in the time.
No argument there whatsoever. No argument whatsoever. There's still, folks. Walt Disney World was built. The Magic Kingdom was built in a year. Okay, so it can be done.
Disney executives, I feel, thought they were going to have more time to plan, and again, were forced to be reactionary and reactive instead of proactive, and it put them way behind the eight ball. And we talked about this on a couple shows previewing it.
Well, I think we talked about it even with D23, the full D23 back in August, of how much of this was announced at D23 that might have been reactionary. So go back and listen to some of our D23 reaction shows where we talked at length about Epic's impact on Disney. And there's some of that. I think that, to Tom's point, I think they are realizing that, okay, if we're just going to be in construction mode, let's really be in construction mode. Let's just get as much done now while we can, and consolidate and get that all put in. So, one other bit though that we did want to quickly talk about is, and this was one last bit that the Disney Parks blog talked about, was special events and festivals specifically, and they're talking about the Epcot festivals throughout the year, from the Festival of the Arts to Flower and Garden to Festival of Holidays, and also Food and Wine, which we're going at right now. And these are great times also to visit Walt Disney World, especially if you can kind of tie them into some of the other pieces with either lower crowds or lower prices. Know that Flower and Garden, for instance, it gets started early on. It's not even officially spring. It's late winter that Flower and Garden gets going, and it goes all the way into almost into June. And same thing, Food and Wine on the reverse side. Food and Wine gets started early, in very, very late summer, and goes pretty much all the way into right into the holidays. So these are great opportunities. One piece to keep in mind about especially the Festival of the Arts, Flower and Garden and Food and Wine, weekends become very busy at Epcot because the locals come out. In fact, Matt, I think you've experienced that. Kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, usually we'll hit like Hollywood Studios and Animal Kingdom on the weekends, because we figure Magic Kingdom's going to be packed, and Epcot during the during the festivals, same thing. The crowds are going to be, not only do you have the vacationers, but you've got the locals. So it's kind of one of those stay away. We'll go during the week. We kind of like to time our stuff. Usually people are in school. They're okay. It'll be quieter. We'll just still have the crowds a little bit, but to the extent of a weekend crowd, we'll go to Animal Kingdom and, we'll do other things where we assume people aren't going to be, because, other people are also going to have the same thought as, hey, if we think this is going to be busy, we'll go somewhere else. So then in turn, those places are going to be being busier than you think. So that's always fun to try to play. Guess who's thinking what?
And the other part of that, of course, is that it's time of day too. If you can do Epcot, in the morning and take advantage of, early hours and all that kind of thing. But once you get past, about lunchtime to late lunchtime, that's when the locals start to show up, and evening becomes very, very busy, and especially Friday night, Saturday night, and even Sunday night to some degree. But Friday night, Saturday night especially, because you've got all the locals who want to come in. They're the annual pass holders, and they're coming in to enjoy food and wine, which is great. It's wonderful, but it does get a little bit busier. So if you are, again, this whole idea of when's the best time to visit, if you are interested in doing any of the festivals at Epcot, bear in mind that those are a little bit busier times. Chris has to run. Chris, thanks for joining us tonight. Glad you were able to be with us. So, as we start to wrap things up, guys, if, Hawk, Matt, we'll start with you, and then Hawk, if you had to choose one time of year, like you're going for 1 week, and Hawk, you're not a local anymore. You're back up in Boston. Okay. Excuse me, Boston. You're up in the Northeast again. So if you're going for 1 week, what's that week you're going?
Doesn't matter. I'm going to Disney. That's my mentality.
Yeah, you got to pick a time of year, buddy.
Oh, come on. That's everybody's thought. Hey, we're going to Disney. It's going to be a great time.
It is, but all right, 1 week during the year. What's that? What do you think what's that sweet spot?
For us, it's usually in October. We like to get, the Halloween feel. Maybe we hit up a Halloween party. We do food and wine. It's our favorite festival to go to. So, ideally, probably early October, middle of October is when we're going to go, just so we can kind of encompass that whole fall feeling, because being in New Englander, fall is one of my favorite times of year. So to see from Disney's perspective, we've tried going in the spring, and it gets a little bit too humid, depending on, we've tried going April, May, and it's been like, isn't bad, but we really enjoy more of the October fall feel down in Orlando.
All right, so Hawk, same deal. This is it. You get 1 week during the year, and you're back in Boston. You're not a local anymore. Where are you going to be? When are you going? 1 week.
Okay, because of right now and having my Halloween bug having bit me, I would say I'd honestly try to come the final couple days of October and the first few days of November, because I'd like to catch the transition if I could come any week. If I was doing it solely on best time to visit and best weather, I would stick with the first week of February. I'd come down and enjoy getting out of, because you said I'm back in Boston, I would get a break and reprieve from the cold winter temps. And even though it's potentially in the 30s, 40s, or 50s here, it's a different kind of cold versus up there, and it's not bad. And most of the days in that time frame, it's high 60s, mid 70s, and low temps in the 40s and 50s. So that's a perfect weather time for me, and I'd escape the first week with lower crowds, first week of February. But to enjoy the holidays, I'd do my Halloween, Christmas.
There you go. Yeah, for me, I'm looking actually at probably that first full week of December, because you've got the better weather, and I'm with you. I would love to go and see that transition from Halloween time to Christmas time, but if I'm going to really kind of pick a time period, I'll tell you what, folks, nobody does Christmas the way Disney does. I mean, it's unreal. So I would probably take that first full week in in December. The weather's usually pretty good. You run the opportunity of maybe catching a taping of the Christmas parade. That usually is recorded sometime in very, very, very late November to very early part of December. So you run a chance of catching a taping of the Christmas parade. And it's again, the crowds can be a little bit lower, depending on how schools are and things like that. So that would probably be the time I would go. Hey, but if you're listening, share out on our Facebook page at Mousecast 2025 for this particular episode 88. When is the best time to visit for you? When do you think, if you're spending a week at Walt Disney World and you got to pick 1 week out of the year, when are you coming down to Walt Disney World? And don't worry, Hawk's paying for it, so you just have to pick when you're coming down. See, there you go.
I work for the state, Hobie. I understand. There's nobody getting a Disney trip out of me. You might get it. I got everybody's complimentary water is on me. I take care of the complimentary waters at any quick service location.
There we go.
For that one. Tell him Hawk sent you.
Yeah, tell him Hawk sent you and that he's not paying. So, hey, if you had a good time with us, share out the fact that you have been joining us for Mousecast. If you're listening on the audio version of this, come join us for our live presentations. We do this live every Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on Facebook at Mousecast 2025 or on our YouTube channel over at Mousecast. So we want to say a huge thank you to Danny, to Tom, to Chris, to Mark, and everybody else who has been with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us, but we want you to join us as well. So be sure to join us on our next show when it is Open Mic Night. Open Mic returns because we will be on the second Tuesday of the month. That means it's your turn to determine the topics and what we talk about. So join us next week for Open Mic Night here on Mousecast, the podcast where the mind meets the magic. And so until next time, we'll see you.
Thank you for listening to Mousecast. We appreciate the time you share with us. And tonight was a very fun show, and joining us is a must. This is where the mind meets the magic. We dive